You refer to the Ganga-Jamuni Tehzeeb as a fiction
Yes.
created to show syncretic relationship.
Yes, yes.
Now, if that's a fiction, what's your view of the base case, worst case, best case between the two communities in India?
So I'll tell you how this creature came to be created. There is an element of truth, but the causal factors which are being imputed to it are flawed. Ganga-Jamuni Tehzeeb is not the product of a foreign religion's ability to coexist. It is the product of the convert Hindu, his inability to give up his cultural roots. Language, Nariyal Phodna, Diya Jalana, is not the sign of accommodation of the outsider. It is the sign of passive resistance of the insider for a few generations until that is completely scrubbed off his Atma. So I'll give you an example from a different society altogether. After the Arab conquest of Persia, why did Iran or Persia become Shia and not Sunni? How did that even happen? It should have led to Sunnification of the particular country. How did it become a Shia country? Because if you look at, let's say, Africa, Latin America, and all these places, every community has its own way of resisting that particular imposition. And they find either local ways of resistance or, let's say, outside ways of resistance, which is, if there is no way I can escape conversion, I'll find something to counter the mainstream within. And there were two pillars of resistance in Persia: denomination and language. So therefore there was an insistence on Persian, and which is exactly the legacy of the Safavid empires and subsequent empires. And there was an insistence on Shiification of the community. They saw that as their way of resisting the imposition of the Arab. Which is why at every possible opportunity, when even Humayun and Babur kept running away to Persia, madad de do, they said, Shia ban rao, de denge. That's exactly was the olive branch of the term offered to them. 100% we'll support you. Umma, chumma, everything done. But you will effectively convert to the Shia denomination. That much is very clear. Similarly, if you go to, let's say, Africa, they tried to protect those non-religious aspects of their culture in the face of Abrahamic onslaught from both sides, because effectively the entire continent is the battleground for these two colonialities. Bharat is effectively going through the very same experience. It's a question of the inherent spiritual strength and other strengths of this particular community that you have still survived in larger numbers. That is never given credit to. So the subscription to the 12-verse Shia denomination by the, let's say, the Persians was in fact a matter of resistance. So Ganga-Jamuni Tehzeeb effectively shows for a few generations that the convert is unable to give up his actual love for Mother Ganga and for everything associated with it. And how that is scrubbed off his consciousness is captured from the birth of the Wahhabi movement, not in the Middle East, but in the heart of Bharat. So around 1998 and 2000 onwards, that was a time when rediff.com was still a great portal for fantastic articles being written on national security and whatnot. In fact, all the current, let's say, greats like Mr. Rajiv Srinivasan and everybody else, they used to write for rediff.com in the 90s. That when the internet boom was happening, this was the kind of literature that I was actually having access to. I remember from my memory of those days that the talk of the sudden Wahhabification of Indian Muslims was being aired as if it's the product of sudden infusion of Gulf money. But when you read the literature, you will realize that this particular facet of that particular community has existed for over 250 years here and has played the central role in the creation of radical Islam in this part of the subcontinent. Now, whether radical is needed or not, I'll leave it for the audience to decide. Now, therefore, the point I'm trying to make is the direct correlation between the establishment of the Wahhabi power center and the creation of the Taliban has been spoken of by Pakistanis. I've cited them in this book. Aisha Jalal, in her book, The Partisans of Allah, specifically points to this as to how the Haqqani network and the Taliban network is directly a product of the mosques set up by the Deobandis and others. Their seminaries. I think around 2011 or 12, I had the opportunity to visit a particular cantonment because a friend was working there. And he confirmed all of this. This was, of course, not confidential information. This was already out and being spoken. It just so happened that the mainstream media was not capturing it because it's uncomfortable, unsecular reality to realize that Wahhabi Islam is not an importation from the Middle East, but is the Paidawar and the Paidaish of Bharat. That the progenitor of this particular mindset, Abdul Wahhab and Shah Waliullah Dehlavi, studied Hadith in Arabia at the same time from the same teacher, is what I'm trying to establish here. And therefore they were contemporaries. It just so happens that because the Wahhabis were attacking British ports in Jeddah and other places in Arabia around that particular period, Wahhabism had suddenly become part of the parlance. And therefore that parlance was used here to say that there is a similarity in mindset between the two sects, or let's say the two groups in Bharat as well as in the Middle East, so let's call them Wahhabis. Otherwise, the Wahhabis of Bharat were actually called the followers of Tariqa-e-Muhammadiyah, the path of Muhammad. This is the actual name of the Wahhabi movement in Bharat. And how there is a continuous line, every institution that is set up. So the map has been selected on the cover page for that reason. To say each of these institutions located here trace their origin to the central institution in Delhi. So, according to me, the Ganga-Jamuni Tehzeeb is, even if it existed, a matter of past. And where it exists not because of the accommodation of another faith, but because of the inability to give up something and perhaps the resilience of the native to a significant extent. And that credit must go back to Hindu Dharma and nobody else. Now, coming to the second part of your question, what do we do next? I think we are hoping that economic incentives will do the job. I'm not sure it's a particularly great SWOT analysis. Because I don't think it helps to be so desperate to look for secular reasons and secular solutions to a religious problem. Then the goalpost is being shifted. And if you think it is going to lead to empowerment in a positive sense and the ability to assimilate and coalesce, well, the best of terrorists in this country come from well-funded Saudi countries or let's say Middle Eastern countries. It's not as if economics has made a difference to them. The reason that this must be traced to a particular mindset is because in certain portions of the book, I capture their own words. Allow me to say this, and everything that I'm going to say is lawful and legal, so I'll say it, and with basis. Shah Waliullah Dehlavi effectively believed that the advent of his faith is for the destruction of the entire global world order as it exists. And the means to actually achieve that particular end is jihad. This was his clear position. Now, he lived in the mid-18th century. Maulana Ala Maududi, Abu Ala Maududi, who was the one who advised Zia-ul Haq towards greater Shariafication of Pakistan, believed in the very same thing. And it's no surprise that the rise of Taliban and the rise of this man to power and Zia-ul Haq's regime all coincided. And his very clear position was to say that there can be a separation between the mosque and the state, and that Christian style secularism is possible in Islam itself is haram. Everything is governed by it because it is seamless and never ending. Therefore, until that ultimate objective is achieved in terms of destruction of the world order and its recasting in Islamic mold, this will be a perpetual conflict. And that is, according to me, the founding DNA of Pakistan and everybody else who believes in the idea of Pakistan. You cannot negotiate here. I wish there was room for negotiation. The only way that this can be dealt with is in the very language that it understands, and whatever that language may be. And the ones who are following this path at this point and doing so successfully, unfortunately, these are terrible examples to draw inspiration from. Eastern Europe and China. Terrible examples. I say this myself. But they are the only ones who seem to be able to contain this particular beast. Either through stringent policies on border controls, which they unabashedly defend even on BBC, or the clear position of countries like China, of Russia. The problem is, since Bharat is essentially democratic in its spirit, it struggles to emulate any of these models. There is no doubting it, and I'm not going to hold this against Bharat for it. You may have the conviction of China, but whether the Chinese model works for you is something you have to ask, because that model is always on the verge of implosion because of the pressure that it creates. It's like a safety, it's like a pressure cooker that can explode anytime. There are no safety valves. Ask anyone who's a student of free speech jurisprudence, any Supreme Court, whether in United States or Bharat, both effectively being the same because we look up to them, is that we say the reason why free speech is necessary is because when a person doesn't have the ability to change policy or to get things done the way he wants to, the only vent that the common man or the common person has, to put it in Justin Trudeau's language, is free speech, the ability to shout and vent and rant. That is one of the roles that is performed by free speech, which is a safety valve. उसका तो कुछ होना नहीं है, but चिल्ला लो, हम आपको दे देंगे. So democracy is contained oligarchy where multiple interests are managed as opposed to a limited number of interests. And you're given the belief कि आप भी इसमें भागीदार हैं, आप जीते रहो इसी delusion में. How was the Rajya Sabha created? Why was the lower house created? How the language of lower house and upper house was created, you should actually read in portions of the book. I've captured it. Since our geniuses were saying that we must be part of stakeholders, we must be stakeholders in policy making, legislative policy making, they created, let's say, certain electoral constituencies or certain elective components. Otherwise, previously it was indirect election, they changed it to direct election gradually. But to ensure that ultimate veto and power making, let's say, decision is in a body of bureaucrats, the upper house was created. The chamber of princes and so on and so forth. So that the wielders of power continue to have the veto. Power is not in getting things done, power is ensuring that your no has a value. Which is to say, if I say no, that's the end of all your discussion. Chintan mantan ho gaya, it's over. The power of veto is the true value of power. Which is to say, are you the limiting agent in a chemical reaction? Then you will decide the rate of reaction. That's it. And whether it happens or not. And that is captured in the evolution of our bicameral system. Next.
So, the creation of Pakistan, one thought would have sort of put to rest this whole thing about two-nation theory, and hopefully economic concerns would come to the fore. 75 years on, it's just the opposite.
Correct.
Why?
Because you will vote for free electricity, it doesn't matter to them. For another reason, because electricity is anyway free to them. When people tried installing meters in Kashmir, after the amendment, don't ever call it abrogation of 370. It's not abrogation. Abrogation means the 370 is not in the statute book. It's not. It exists. So simply call it amendment to 370. It's not deletion, repealment, nothing. It exists in the statute book. It's only been changed. They came and they publicly threw the meters in front of the electricity office. What did the state do? Women came and threw challenge. Kya kar liya aapne? You go to my part of the city. I am from Bhagyanagar. Urf, Hyderabad. Here's an open challenge to all municipal corporations across the country. Make your electricity bill collections public and subject to RTI, and tell us which areas are paying and which areas are not. We'll draw inference. आपके प्रायोरिटीज ही अलग हैं, तो these are at the two ends of the, let's say, the spectrum. So if you think it's about economics, and there's this fond belief in Indians, Pakistan मर जाएगा, implode हो जाएगा, 4 में बढ़ जाएगा, तो 4 पाकिस्तान आ जाएंगे. Each of them an independent actor. And you have multiple states to deal with. The only Pakistan that is acceptable is a Pakistan that is reduced to the status of Gaza, which is it will never have an army or a military of its own, which means Bharat takes over the country militarily and provides for its civic duties. No other version of Pakistan is acceptable. An independent Pakistan with the ability to actually marshal people to arms cannot survive, cannot exist, should not exist. You can keep dreaming of Akhand Bharat, but this is the way to that. And therefore, this WhatsApp university says, देखो POK में आजाद कश्मीर में भारत के लिए नारे उठ रहे हैं. What is wrong with you? They are only saying हमें बिजली नहीं मिल रही इसलिए हम चिल्ला रहे हैं. और आपको लगता है कि ये तिरंगा को पकड़ के रो रहे हैं. That is the desperation. You are actually hoping that कोई तो मिल जाए उस community से जो हमारे लिए बात करेगा. That is how loser your position is. Stop this desperation. Your plan A is you, your plan B is you, your plan C is you. This is the one thing you must learn from the world Zionist experience. I'm anyway accused of being a Hindu Zionist. I'm owning it up. And I'm saying that, understand that the essence of Zionism, whatever it may be and its end goals, the one thing that you have to draw is self-reliance. अगर दुनिया आपके खिलाफ खड़ी हो जाए, do you have the ability to stand up? That is the question that you should ask yourself to protect this Punya Bhumi. And therefore, the genuine hope is that you start move, and this has to start from the society, and then the state acquires that character, because the Atma of the state is the society. If the Atma thinks that it has to constantly look to the west on either sides of the Atlantic for help, then the state will continuously do the same thing. Fortunately, the state's DNA has changed over the period, over the last 10 years, or let's say 8 years at the very least. But that's because the society has started moving in that particular direction, because they realized, agar yahi hal chalta raha, this country will be up for wholesale sale. Next.
So there's a general belief that the overall Hindu civilization in India has withstood foreign invasions and still retained its identity, etc. Is that a part of a solution, or is that a part of the problem?
I think it's a source of hope. It is certainly a cause for despair when you also don't realize the flip side to it. See, there are very few countries which have managed to retain their traditional political boundaries. Germany has lost some, France has lost some, Israel has lost some, everybody has lost some. उसमें तो कोई doubt ही नहीं है. So I'm not looking at it that way. But you will be comfortable with this particular analysis if you believe that it is just another territory. But if you believe it's sacred geography, which is part of your rituals on a daily basis, then that geography has no business being anybody else's hands. That's one. Second, the history, at least of the last 1200 to 1300 years, is continuous cession of Hindu political and civilizational space. Akhand Bharat stops at Pakistan. Why does it not have Afghanistan? I don't understand. It should have Afghanistan because the Shahi dynasty was the last to fall before Kabul fell to the Muslims. So we have given up Afghanistan even in our hope. Pakistan की उम्मीद करते ही हो तो अफगानिस्तान की क्यों नहीं भाई? So, in my view, this, in fact, given the kind of archaeological excavations being done in that place, it's unbelievable that it doesn't form part of even the greater Bharat identity. So, what China has done over the centuries is that it has effectively decided that the southern belly, which has all the river systems and that's where the bulk of the population is treated as the core bhumi that needs to be protected, and it has created buffers around that particular place. Which is to say, अगर ये भी गया दूसरा है, अगर ये भी गया दूसरा है, अगर ये भी गया दूसरा है, ये कोर तो बचा रहेगा. And therefore you have the annexation of Mongolia, you have the annexation of Tibet, and then all of these places they keep annexing, so that if you actually look at the original, let's say, map of China before Tibet and Mongolia, It's almost comparable to Bharat, and at best it would be, so it's what, about 96 lakh square kilometers. We are about 33 lakh square kilometers. This is after all these annexations. Otherwise, it would be probably even comparable to perhaps maybe, so Australia is smaller than Brazil. Brazil is 85,000, so 85 lakhs. This must be about 72 lakh square kilometers, Australia. It's closer to that. Close to 20 lakh square kilometers is actually annexed to protect the buffer. So you might as well decide what are your non-negotiable areas and then start creating buffers, and that would be the concept of Greater Bharat. That is how a Greater Bharat identity is created. So from Aryavarth to the south is to be protected 100%. So whatever is described in the Vishnu Puran or whichever Puran, you say, no, from Himalayas to this is mine. But this also the reason why the Himalayas is the subject of this huge contestation, because your identity as a Hindu comes from the Himalayas. Your spirituality comes from that particular place. No wonder the north is the battleground. Assume for a moment that Himalayas are completely outside your hands. What are you really praying to? I mean, your deities are there. That's the belief. If you talk to people who understand the battle that's going around the Himalayan region from the east as well as the west, they are very clear that there is a larger game and we are constantly stuck only with, let's say, the China-Pakistan angle. You don't realize that this would effectively mean evisceration of the territorial moorings of your cultural identity completely. That is exactly why Afghanistan doesn't feature in your Akhand Bharat map anymore, and that will happen in the future if you continue to let this happen.